Hi, and welcome back to Orlando the Computer Guy, and to part 2 of this video series. If you're just joining us, I recommend watching part 1. I'll have a link in the description box below. Anyway, as a quick recap, I received this 20-year-old laptop, and I'm in the process of getting it back to a usable state. I tried out a few Linux distributions. Some of them didn't work well enough, but I don't see a speaker icon down below. My laptop doesn't seem to have sound. The background song just stopped. Wow, that text is slow. And some of them just flat out failed. All I did was hit Ctrl-Alt-Delete. I wasn't expecting this laptop to have a conniption fit. So, I decided to reinstall Windows 98 back on the machine. But before I can do that, there is the little problem of a dead BIOS battery. I want that replaced so that I don't have to keep inputting the date every time the laptop boots up. Nor do I want battery acid leaking onto the motherboard and killing the computer. So, without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so there really wasn't that much information on this model of laptop. Normally, I would go on sites that show how to disassemble these machines, but because this one is really old, I wasn't able to find anything. That also includes what kind of BIOS battery is used, so I'll be flying blind, so to speak. Let's start this adventure by removing the laptop battery. That just comes right off. Next, there are a few screws to remove from the bottom. It's a good idea to have something to keep the screws in, and I have one of these cheap pill boxes that you can buy at any drugstore. These work perfect for that. This one's giving me a little trouble. It's loose, but it doesn't want to come out. Oh well. I'm sure it will work itself out once I remove the top cover. Let's move on to the next one. Now that these screws are loose, I should be able to just pop this open, just like that. I think this is so cool. You can access the hard drive by flipping this open like a car hood. Now that I'm actually getting into the insides of this machine, it's a good idea to ground myself using the anti-static wrist strap. I wouldn't want to zap something important and turn this into a paperweight. Anyway, let's go ahead and remove the hard drive. To do that, there is one screw that needs to be removed, and the hard drive should lift out. Now you can see the RAM that sits just below it. Now I should be able to remove this front panel and touchpad by disconnecting one cable right here. Okay, now I can begin to remove this keyboard. There are a few screws to remove. I wonder if there's some screws on the bottom of this laptop still holding the keyboard in place. Aha! So it isn't screws holding the keyboard in place, it's these plastic tabs along the front. So I'll use this old card here to undo the tabs. Alright. There appears to be an RF shield underneath the keyboard that is also protecting the ribbon cable. It's actually a pretty nice feature. However, how do I remove the shield? Ah, I see some screws here and here and here. Let me just zoom in so you can see where they are. I'll just remove them. Oh, hi Sandman. How are you?
I'm good. What are you doing?
I'm disassembling this laptop to replace the BIOS battery. Want to help?
Sure.
Oh look, an AMD K6 processor. I believe this is just like the one I had on my very first Windows machine from last century. In order to remove the keyboard, I'll have to unlock the ribbon cable. And it should slide out just like that. Well, crud. It looks like there are some more screws to remove in order to take out the plastic covering. And while I'm at it, I'll go ahead and remove the screw that's holding the CD-ROM in place. So what is holding this plastic cover in place? And the CD-ROM doesn't want to budge. Well, let's go ahead and turn this over and remove some of the screws from underneath. Now that is a beefy screw for a laptop. You rarely ever see screws that size anymore. Huh. Something is still holding this in place. I bet I know what it is. I bet it's these screws and the screws underneath here that's holding everything in place. I need to be careful removing the rubber pad. I don't want to break it. Even though I've removed all the screws, it does feel like there are more screws that could be hidden underneath. It's loose, but it won't come off.
There is something I'm wondering, is how this plastic cover is being held on here. It looks like it's just snapped in place.
I think it's just one molded piece. Anyway, let me remove the panel here that houses the power button and make sure there are no more screws. This is just a mystery how this top panel is held on. Aha! With this off, we can now access the power buttons, the LED display, and monitor display. Oh look, more screws.
I don't think that screw is holding the plastic cover in place because it feels solid over here on this end.
What was that?
It just snapped off. It was being held on by a plastic catch.
That's ground right there. That's cable for the monitor. And this ribbon cable is for the LED display. So I'm going to remove that one first since it's the most fragile.
You might have to grab that with a hemostat.
I think you're right. My fingers are a bit too big. Well, let me try that technique to remove the monitor cable. There. Now ground and a few more screws. Oh look, there's another screw right there. Ah, speaker wires. Oh look, the CD-ROM is being held in place by a cradle. That's why it couldn't be slid out. I just need to remove these screws right here. Wow, they have this thing really screwed in place. Nothing was going to move. Oh! The CD drive and the floppy drive are cradled together, so if you try to pull on one, the other follows.
There it is!
And it's a regular battery. Oh goody! This daughter board needs to come out.
Ta-da! It's a lithium 2032 battery.
I know where I can buy one.
Wow, lithium? They had lithium batteries back then?
They must have. This is the original battery as far as I know. Well, thank you for helping me disassemble this laptop.
Oh, you're welcome. If you need any help again, call me.
Thanks, I will. I know I should be doing this outside, but I want to hurry up and get this done. Whoops! Guess I should have held on to the straw. Hope I didn't do any damage. Anyway, a few more sprays and this should be okay. Now let's see if I can't replace the battery. I picked this up at a local drugstore. It's a brand new CR2032 lithium battery, just like the old one. Harmful if swallowed? Who would want to swallow a battery? There we go. New battery in place. Now to reassemble this thing. Putting this laptop back together is going to be pretty quick and easy. If I run into any trouble or if I forget something, I can always go back to the footage I shot disassembling it. In fact, I end up doing this several times just to make sure I don't screw something up. I'll start with this daughter board that covers the BIOS battery. Maybe. Oh, come on. Why won't you fit in there? Okay, it's in. With that screwed in place, I'll reinstall the CD-ROM and floppy drives. These go back in pretty easy. Here's a tip that will save you time if you run into a similar situation. Leave the screws loose just enough to move the drives around. That way you can fit everything into place first before tightening everything up. When you do that, the bracket should slot itself in place and you're ready to move on. Now time to reattach the speakers to the motherboard by inserting the appropriate cable here. With this view, you can see just how small a space I'm working with. Even though the laptop looks huge by today's standards, it's still packed pretty full. I can now begin screwing the top panel back into place. Now to reattach this piece. I believe some other port was supposed to go here, but this model didn't have it, so this is kind of like a dust cover. I can now move on to reinstalling the screen. All I have to do is line up the shaft with the holes, and there you go. Oh boy, does this monitor make this machine a little top heavy. Yikes. So to prevent the top panel from moving, I'll try to hold it down with one hand while I reconnect the cables with the other. Okay, that plan didn't work, so I will hope the laptop doesn't tip backwards as I need the use of both hands for this. For some reason this first cable is a little tricky to get back in place, but I was eventually successful in reconnecting it. Now ground can be screwed in place. I have a feeling these last few connections are going to be a pain in the you-know-where. Problem is, these cables are thick and have been in the same position for so long that they're frozen, so I'm going to have to try and finagle them into place. Kind of like that. Cool, looks like the hard part is over, as this is the next piece that's going to be reattached. Okay, I have two connections here. I have power that goes here, and the ribbon cable that controls both power and LEDs go here. I'll connect power first. Man, this connector is so small and my fingers are so big, I'm having trouble getting it back in. There, it's in. Now the ribbon cable. Oh joy. The slot for the ribbon cable here is closed. How wonderful. Remember what I said a few minutes ago? Putting this laptop back together is going to be pretty quick and easy. Yeah, file that under wishful thinking. Anyway, back to the problem with the ribbon cable. I'm using the hemostats to open the connector and, with a bit of luck, slide the ribbon cable back in. Then I can use the hemostats to lock the connection. Come on. Come on. Come on. Wait, I think I got it. I think I've got it. There. Now I can snap the whole assembly back into place. Now the bracket here can be screwed back into place. Enough of the pieces have been put back in so I can screw down the top panel. Oh great, another ribbon cable. Good thing this is the last one and it's for the keyboard. Time for the RF shield to go back in place. The keyboard can go back into place now. Now the touchpad can be reattached by this connection right here. Now to put the hard drive back in. All I have to do is line up the male with the female connector and push down. There we go. Just add screws, and that part is done. Now it's looking like a laptop again. The hinge covers are next. Well, one of them is. This one is pretty much gone, but at least the screw is intact. Now the other one that's not in much better shape. Oh well. This gives the laptop some character. And the final touch. With the hinges now added, I can now begin the tedious process of screwing everything down. I'll start with a few that I missed underneath the touchpad. Now all the screws on the bottom can go back in. Again, just start the screws, but don't tighten them until you know everything fits okay. Then you can tighten all the screws in place. Just the front screws now. Voila, a fully reassembled laptop. Join me for the next part when I actually install Windows 98. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.